You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the first semi-final of the ICC T20 World Cup for 2021 between England and New Zealand from the Zayed Cricket Stadium. It's the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's have a look at the match summary from the first semi-final of this ICC T20 World Cup between England and New Zealand from the Zayed Cricket Stadium. England batted first and made 4 for 166 from their 20 overs. Ali top scored with 51 not out. Neesham, Southey, Milne and Sodhi all took 1 wicket each for New Zealand. New Zealand in reply finished on 5 for 167 from 19 overs. Mitchell top scored with 72 not out. Livingstone and Wokes took 2 wickets each for England. New Zealand won by 5 wickets and Daryl Mitchell was named man of the match. What were the key moments and key factors from this first semi-final between England and New Zealand? England's batting, Moeen Ali's innings of 51 not out and the partnerships he had with David Malan of 63 for the 3rd wicket and 40 for the 4th wicket with Liam Livingstone were key to England in getting to 166. England's bowling taking early wickets in the New Zealand innings to have them 4 for 107 inside 15.1 overs to put them in a strong position in this match. Daryl Mitchell's innings of 72 not out was the key for New Zealand to get them over the line in this semi-final. And his partnerships with Neesham of 40 for the 5th wicket and with Satner of 20 unbeaten for the 6th wicket were key to New Zealand as they chased down the runs. Those were the key moments and key factors from this first semi-final between England and New Zealand. Let's have a look at both teams' performances in this first semi-final with both bat and ball. We'll start with England and their batsmen. Buttler, 29, Bairstow, 13, Malan, 41, Ali, 51 not out, Livingstone, 17, and Morgan, 4 not out. That's how the England batsmen went about things with the bat in this first semi-final against New Zealand. I thought England batted well in this semi-final to get to 166 from their 20 overs. They got off to a good start with Buttler and Bairstow adding 37 for the 1st wicket. They found themselves at 253 inside 8.1 overs. And New Zealand were bowling well at that stage, doing well to keep the run rate down, putting pressure on England. And England were finding it very difficult to score and really put down the accelerator. But some late order hitting from Moeen Ali, who scored a good 51 not out, and his partnerships of 63 for the 3rd wicket with Malan and 40 for the 4th wicket with Liam Livingstone were handy for England to get to that 166 score, which in the end wasn't enough as New Zealand chased down the runs. So at the end of the day for England with the bat, it was an okay score. It was a competitive score, 166, but it wasn't quite enough as New Zealand chased down the runs in the end. I think they will be a bit disappointed that they didn't get more runs than that. But at the end of the day, it was a good score, especially in the semi-final. When you put runs on the board in the semi-final, the team chasing second is always going to be under pressure. And New Zealand were in the run chase. And we'll talk about that when we get into the bowling performance from England. But to put runs on the board was pretty good from England's point of view. So 166 was a good score. But in the end, it wasn't enough from England. But it was a good batting performance in the end. Moeen Ali played well for his 51, not out. He's had a good tournament with both bat and ball. Malan played well for his 41. Good late order hitting from Livingstone. So overall, it was a good batting performance from England. Let's have a look at England's bowlers and talk about their performance in this first semi-final. 2 wickets for Livingstone and Wokes. A wicket for Rashid. No wickets for Jordan and Wood. That's how the England bowlers performed in this first semi-final. I thought England's bowling up front was good in the New Zealand innings. They took early wickets and were able to put New Zealand under pressure. They bowled good lines and lengths. They did well to keep the pressure on New Zealand. New Zealand were 4 for 107 inside 15.1 overs and looked like England were going to win this match and New Zealand were under pressure. But the bowlers towards the back end of the New Zealand innings for England is where the game turned in favour of New Zealand. The 17th over in particular, bowled by Chris Jordan, changed the course of this match. New Zealand were 4 for 110 at the start of the 17th over, and by the time it finished, they were 4 for 133. Jimmy Neesham just smashed Jordan to all parts of the ground in that over, and Jordan didn't quite get it right in that over. He went for 6 two-leg buys, a wide, 4 a wide, 6, 2 and 1 for 23 off the over. That over released the pressure that England built up over New Zealand up until that point in the match, and the next few overs went for a lot of runs. Overs 18 went for 14, and overs 19 went for 20 runs. And England were under pressure with the ball, and New Zealand caused them to be under pressure because they were scoring such big runs in those overs. And England were inconsistent with their lines and lengths and just didn't get it right. That cost them this match in the end. And the England bowlers, their death bowling was quite poor, and it went for a lot of runs. So at the end of the day, if England are doing the review, they would have looked back at that moment, especially Chris Jordan's over, where the game changed, and they'll probably think, we could have done better with our death bowling, especially with the next 2 overs to come that went for 14 and 20. That pretty much won the game for New Zealand. So overall, it was a good bowling performance up front from England, but towards the back end of the innings, it was disappointing with the ball. Overall, it was a good effort from England. Did well to score 166 with the bat and gave themselves a good opportunity to win this semi-final. They bowled well up front in the New Zealand innings by taking wickets and putting New Zealand under pressure early, but the last few overs towards the end of the match is where the game turned in favour of New Zealand. Let's have a look at New Zealand's team performance with both bat and ball in this first semi-final against England. We'll start with their batsmen. Guptill 4, Mitchell 72 not out, Williamson 5, Conway 46, Phillips 2, Neesham 27 and Santner 1 not out. That's how New Zealand performed with the bat in this first semi-final. New Zealand's batting struggled in this match early on. They lost early wickets in the innings and in the power play. They were 2 for 13 when both Guptill and Williamson were out early. New Zealand were under pressure because England were bowling so well at that stage of the match. Daryl Mitchell and Devon Conway's partnership of 82 for the 3rd wicket did well to rescue the innings for New Zealand. Once that partnership was broken, New Zealand was still under pressure at 4 for 107 inside 15.1 overs. But the partnership between Mitchell and Neesham of 40 for the 5th wicket got New Zealand back into this match. The 17th over that Chris Jordan bowled to Neesham, Jimmy Neesham attacked him and scored 23 runs off that over. That turned the match in favour of New Zealand. New Zealand were 4 for 133 at the end of that over. Neesham got out and New Zealand were 5 for 147 at the end of the 18th over. But Daryl Mitchell and Mitchell Santner's partnership of 20 unbeaten for the 6th wicket helped New Zealand to win this semi-final. Mitchell finished off the job in the 19th over and smashed Chris Woakes for 20 runs and guided New Zealand to victory. Daryl Mitchell was impressive with the bat and took it upon himself to bat through the innings and get New Zealand over the line, which was very important for New Zealand. They needed him to bat through the innings. He was the key, Mitchell. He was the one who needed to get the runs and needed to play like a Kane Williamson type role, be that anchor role that we associate with Kane Williamson, and Daryl Mitchell did that. He was able to be that anchor role that Kane Williamson does for the side, and he was able to score runs, and other batsmen like Conway and Neesham were able to score runs, and he was able to guide the innings and get New Zealand over the line. I was very impressed with Mitchell and the way he played. It was probably one of the best knocks I've seen in a run chase for some time in T20 cricket. He was calm, he didn't panic, he believed that New Zealand can still win this match, but he needed to be there at the end. And that's the important thing for any player when you play cricket, is to believe. Despite the odds, despite how far back New Zealand were in this match, and many people were saying, oh, this is England's game to win. New Zealand are not in this game. They're going to lose this game. But he believed, as well as the rest of the batsmen who came in to join him, believed that we can win this match. And that got New Zealand over the line in this match. That self-belief and the way that Mitchell played helped New Zealand win this match. And it was a great innings from Daryl Mitchell. And it was an important innings because for New Zealand to chase down these runs, they needed Guptill, Williamson and Conway to score big. And those 3 batsmen are very important in this New Zealand batting lineup. And I talked about that in my preview that I did before this semi-final, that they needed Guptill, Williamson and Conway in particular to get most of the runs for New Zealand, because if they go early, which in this semi-final we saw Guptill and Williamson go early, then New Zealand will be under pressure and it will be hard for them to chase down any score that England set. They went early, but it was up to Daryl Mitchell to get them over the line, which he did. Devon Conway stood up, he got 46, and Jimmy Neesham smashed a quick fire 27 to get New Zealand over the line. So at the end of the day, New Zealand did very well. And it was other batsmen who stood up, like Mitchell, like Neesham, Conway. Instead of relying on Guptill and Williamson all the time, those batsmen stood up knowing that this is a semi-final. Let's just give it our best. You know, whatever happens, happens, but it's a semi-final. You know, let's give it our best, and there's no tomorrow, because if we lose, that's it. If we win, we go through to the final. And New Zealand won, and they book a place in the T20 World Cup final. But overall, it was a great batting performance from New Zealand, and what an innings from Daryl Mitchell. A brilliant knock to get New Zealand over the line in this semi-final. Let's have a look at New Zealand's bowling performance in this first semi-final against England and talk about how they went about things in this semi-final. No wickets for Phillips, Satner and Bolt. A wicket each for Neesham, Milne, Southey and Sodhi. I thought New Zealand did well with the ball to keep England to 166 on this surface here in Abu Dhabi. They bowled well up front, taking early wickets, bowled good lines and lengths and did well to keep the pressure on England early. Had England 3 down for 116 inside 15.2 overs, and were looking to keep England under that 150 score or just over 150. Towards the back end of the innings, they just didn't quite get it right with the ball, New Zealand. Their lines and lengths were a bit inconsistent, didn't quite execute their skills with the ball. England sort of got away with them with the bat and were able to post that 166 score. So overall, it was an okay bowling performance from New Zealand. It wasn't a dominant display with the ball, and there's some areas to look at and improve on for them heading into the final of this T20 World Cup. Overall, it was a great team performance from New Zealand. This win will boost their confidence, and New Zealand will be a hard team to beat in the final. Where to now for both teams in this ICC T20 World Cup for 2021? For England, losing today's semi-final against New Zealand ends their T20 World Cup. They have played some good cricket throughout this T20 World Cup and deserved their place in the semi-finals. Unfortunately, it wasn't their day, and New Zealand was simply too good in the end. Hopefully for England, they can come back stronger for the next T20 World Cup in 2022 in Australia. For New Zealand, their T20 World Cup continues as they go through to the final after winning against England. They will now face either Pakistan or Australia in the final. Overall, it was a fantastic victory from New Zealand. Despite being put under pressure early in the run chase, they were able to find a way to win this match, all thanks to a brilliant innings from Daryl Mitchell. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.